All right. So Bryson, you're probably gonna go, I don't know what the creed is, but we're gonna do the student creed. So in my academy, we believe in affirmation. Students need to be affirmed of their abilities to take on topics and things in order to move in a productive and efficient way. So I am going to, y'all ready too. Y'all looking at me like, bring it, bring it. But if you would like to say it with us, you can. I'm going to say the line, the students are going to repeat it. It is supposed to act as a call and response. I am speaking affirmation to them, they are speaking back to me. Okay, are we ready? I am a student seeking to be a scholar. The standard is excellence today and tomorrow. I am disciplined, focused, and on time. I am organized, respectful, and responsible. I am on a mission to elevate myself, my family, my community, and humanity. Ashe. All right. We do that because what our students have to endure in the classroom and abroad is a lot. And they are made to be adults long before they should be. They're adultified. Black and brown children are adultified a lot faster than others. They are made to experience things and feel things. So I want each of you to briefly share with the room, one, where you go to school, so make sure we give that out. I'd like to acknowledge Miss Erin English, who is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Central Unified School District, sitting in the back, because 3 of these scholars are hers. And I'm not sure if there's a Clovis Unified administrator here, but Miss Amina Carter is a senior at Clovis North High School. So I want to acknowledge that. So, and you guys, the microphones are in your chair. Did you have them? All right. So I'm going to start with you, MJ. You and Bryson are the 2 youngest in the bunch. Tell us about your experience and why being here today and talking with this group is important.
So first off, my name is MJ Washington, but on the pamphlet, it's Monisha, and I go to Justin Garza High School, and I'm a freshman. So just to start off, this is such a special experience because I was able to be an Ujima student with Miss Dr. Barfield for 2 years, and it was the best 2 years of my life. So for starters, with the N-word in 7th grade, fresh out of elementary school, I was bullied for being biracial and for my looks and I have a very unique style. If you see me at school, I put it on every day. But I used to get bullied, and all the time the word would be used as a way to try to bring me down, try to put me back into my shell. But I feel like Ujima really helped me to not confide and not just like, oh, well, I guess what they say is true, and just accept it. I fought back from it. And I also like to, a similar experience happened in 9th grade in my biology class, but I feel like over the years, especially with Ujima and just the community and the people I have in my corner, they really helped me understand that the words that they're using and the way that they're using it, especially like in the video, they talked about context and like their intentions were not where they should be. So I feel like that's my experience with it. I've heard it throughout my entire life. Sometimes it's a word you just use in a casual conversation. It has like very hateful intentions. And I feel like, sorry, I'm pretty nervous up here.
That's all right.
But it was used to get a reaction out of people. And I feel like that's what we should really target the most is intentions going into it, and really think before you speak. It's such a common thing you hear growing up, the golden rule, but I feel like it cannot be stressed enough.
Perfect. Bryson, how do you feel, and then your experience with it at school? How does it make you feel?
Well, first off, my name is Bryson Barnes. I'm a sophomore at Justin Garza High School, and I'm the secretary of our BSU. My experience.
And what's a BSU? Since you go ahead.
It's a Black student union. Our BSU didn't used to be the way it was, but I'm glad that we're building it up from ground zero, and I'm really proud of how far we've come.
Right on. Go
Um,
ahead.
my experience with the N word was straight out of second grade. I will never forget this. It was one of my friends, which is why it hurt so deep. We were just playing, and then out of nowhere, he just called me the N word. Now, at the time, I knew exactly what that meant. My parents gave me the talk at like 5 years old. And so I started to get mad, and I didn't talk to him for the rest of the day. And, obviously we made up. We were only in second grade, but over time, throughout my life, I've heard it more and more, and almost always it's gotten a reaction out of me up until recently when I learned that they will only make fun of what they wish they were. They will only ridicule you for what they wish they had. And now I just, whenever they call me the N-word, I'm like, okay, that's me. You wish you were. And yeah, that's my experience with the N-word, pretty much.
I love it. Karai?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here and, hear us out what we have to say. My name's Karai Page. I'm a junior this year at Central High School, and I'm president of our Black Student Union on campus. And it's tough because I predominantly go to a white school. It's mostly white kids and Mexicans, and it's just a little bit tough, especially because the Black kids at our community, they're not always very comfortable when it comes to getting together for like a BSU meeting and whatnot. And around my campus, it's very normalized to say the N-word. Like, I hear it every day. And sometimes like they'll say it and I'll be around and they'll like look at me like, oh, like I wasn't supposed to say that. No, you weren't, but you obviously don't care enough to mind your tongue around others. And my personal experience, I've never been flat out called the N-word, thankfully, and it's sad that my peers today have experienced that. I've only experienced it through other people. I've heard stories and I've seen it. My parents from a very young age, like Bryson was saying, told me right out the gate, not a good word to use ever. And it's not acceptable in any way, whether it's with the A or with the R. And I'm just thankful to be here, and I'm hoping that we can teach you guys something new today.
And we'll go in a little bit deeper about Black student unions BSUs because as a part of my executive director work, we're taking on the state of California to ensure that at every high school and every middle school, that there is an affinity space for Black students to go and be without shame. And I'm proud to even say in Fresno Unified, I know their foundation executive director is here, Wendy McCulley. Fresno Unified, we've been piloting elementary school Black student unions for like literally the last 5 years. And we can see what happens when children are affirmed early as opposed to later, so we'll get into that as well. So Amina, Clovis North High School, near and dear to my heart because I opened it, and the legacy that is the Broncos. Tell us about your experience.
Okay, I'm Amina, and I go to Clovis North. And being a Black student, Clovis North sometimes can be really difficult. And luckily, my principal, Dr. Shapiro, he collected a group of us because one of the parents called, and she said to him, "You don't know what it's like to be a Black student." And he never will fully grasp, how it is to be a Black student at Clovis North. And in this cabinet, we talk about a lot of topics like this. And there's only 3% Black people at our school, which when I heard it, I was like, whoa. Because I look around and maybe one other Black student is in my class, but you think it's a little more, but it's really shocking. But with my experience of racism or discrimination at school, it's not right in your face. I feel like people today have found a way to still discriminate, to still hate against you, but they kind of put it under the table. So you're sitting there was that really should I take offense to that? Or is it just am I overreacting? Or something like that. So personally with the N-word, the first thing that came to mind for me was when I was talking with a friend and she like made a joke, something like, I don't know, what do you call an old dinosaur? And then she's like, N-word or saurus or something like that. And I was like, I wasn't even expecting it. And I'm like, I heard someone say this earlier, like, do you even know me? Like, I've put myself, like, I like to pride myself in picking the right friends, and I would hope that all my friends would know that I would not find that acceptable. So now you have to think, like, what am I gonna do about that? But also, this is like my friend, and if I have a fight with her, it's not gonna affect just me. It's gonna affect her, and it's gonna affect my whole team too. So a lot of the times in these situations when like a Black student is called the N-word, it falls on us, you know? It doesn't fall on like the punishment or whatever, like, because a lot of the times we are told like, you just have to let go of it or it happens, you know? And I don't think that should be the case anymore. And I think that's like a big change that needs to happen.
Can appreciate that. And I want to apologize to, because I asked about Clovis Unified Administrators, and we have a board trustee here who's also the board president, the first Black school board president in Clovis Unified history, Miss Yolanda Moore. So forgive me for that, my sister. I apologize. And I want everyone to know that I'm elevating these women, and I know Mr. Chris Salone is here. He's in Madera Unified. I'm elevating these Black people in the presence of these children because I'm a firm believer is that our children cannot be what they don't see. So if people that look like them are not elevated and spoken positively about, they're going to go into shame mode and they won't elevate or go to that person either. So I want to be clear, when I acknowledge these people, it's affirmation for them too, because I can only imagine what a day is for us, right? So thank you guys for sharing that. It's important. Karai, at Central High, which used to be Central West until the district turned it to Central High, your group, your BSU group, took it upon themselves to hold listening circles with faculty. Can you share a little bit about that experience and why you all wanted to do that?
Yes, so starting my freshman year of high school, we had our president, Nyaja Terry. We started restorative circles because there had been multiple altercation with teachers on campus using the N-word and invalidating our feelings when we brought it up to admin and stuff like that. And so we brought it up to our principal, Mr. Holterman, and we brought it to my dad, who also works at the school, Thomas Page, and Shannon Monroe. And they decided that a restorative circle would be very important to start educating the teachers on campus on how they should properly treat Black students on campus, because whether we like to admit it or not, we're not like the rest of the students that we go to school with. We take a certain amount of respect. It's different. You don't just get to come out and talk about our hair or what we had going on and stuff like that. So we brought restorative circles to our campus, and it would be once every month where we would have a different group of teachers come in and sit in on these circles, and there would be members of our BSU who got to share their experiences as a Black student, and just to really educate them on how it felt to be a Black student on our campus and what they could do to make our experiences more comfortable and easier.
Thank you for that. And I want you guys to know the difference is when Nyasha and Karai and that group did this, they were ready to have that conversation and to go in that space, as opposed to being pulled into that space and made to have that conversation. Do you see the difference? They were ready, they prepared, they knew what they wanted to communicate, they understood that. So I wanted to make sure that we noted that. Amina, anything for you? Those moments on your campus, I know we've had some conversations about your engagement with your principal.
Yeah, we also we've had something like that with, like I mentioned earlier, with Dr. Shapiro. So we have at my school, it's a council and it's called Diversity Council. So it's a little bit of people from each group on campus, but sometimes when it's a large group, it's hard to speak out about something so vulnerable and something so personal. So having like a small group with not just any teacher, but with the principal, and he sits there, like we meet once a month, and he asks us like, how are we doing? And we even start with like, oh, how was your weekend or something like that. But having like someone, and especially the principal, who like shows that they're present and that they care is so important. And even just like if there's nothing to report on, because of course it's once a month and there's not something happening every month, but just like meeting to talk about it is makes such a difference. And I wish that like more schools had something like that. So.
Thank you for that. Bryson, MJ, what's been your experiences since you're both at Garza and you both run your BSU? What is that like for you? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Bryson.
Okay. Regarding faculty, I believe, right?
Your engagement, what is that, as far as when it comes to this? What have you found works?
Regarding engagement, what I've found works is that you just create a safe space for your students to talk. If you do that, it's gonna work out, but it depends on how you do it and who you let create that safe space. So if you let the students create it, yes, it's going to work, but over time, that may not work for the next set of students. So it's all about who you let do it and for basically how long you let them engage.
When I came into Justin Garza, I had full intentions on completely elevating Justin Garza's BSU. And as BSU president, one of my main focuses was to really engage the community of Justin Garza, because our sister school, Central East, I know they have a large African American population in comparison to Justin Garza's, but however, I wanted to really engage every single one of the students on the campus to really have that safe space to communicate. So our advisor, Ms. Conyer, we actually developed the safe space with all our officers and just all the members who come. Sometimes it fluctuates, but we have consistent members to the point where we can actually get stuff done and we could have really some of those tough conversations. So earlier in my introduction, I was talking about how I was having some racial problems in my 4th period class, and I was able to be vulnerable with my BSU, and we've developed ideas on how we could really change the culture of Justin Garza and really make an impact by starting off with, this may be jumping a little ahead, but I wanted to make it to where teachers who weren't of African American descent to know how to handle situations where students are being racially discriminated in their class, and so they don't feel like they're overstepping any boundaries, but they're also respecting each and every one of their students and meeting every single one of their needs. So me and Bryson especially have collaborated, and we looked at different pieces of literature. What is the book called, Bryson? It's like the student handbook.
It's a 4th edition of something I'm not remembering right now.
It's like a very simple name, and I should be able to remember it, but that book has really opened, and I'm quoting it all the time, but it's a book that really talks about how you can't be afraid to create change in spaces that may seem difficult. It's like when people are talking about this non-Black person just called me N-word and they're discriminating, everybody goes, talk to your PSU advisor, I don't want to talk about that. Because it's a hard subject, and I feel like when we're stronger together, and I feel like our BSU has really created this space where we're okay to those tough conversations as long as we're in it together. I don't know if that makes sense.
I like that. All right, so here's the question that I think we've all had. Well, Bryson, this is my first interaction with Bryson, by the way. He came highly recommended by his advisor, who's a dear friend of mine. So I'm speaking to you as though we've been through this before, okay? We good? Okay, cool. All right, so when you hear other Black students use the N-word in school or in your friend group, does it feel different than hearing it from non-Black people? Whoever wants to go. Go ahead, Bryson.
It doesn't, well, it kind of does, because with people of my own skin color and my own ethnicity, it doesn't feel derogatory. It feels almost like they're welcoming me in a weird way, even though I know what the word was used for and I know its history, how it was meant to break us down. On one hand, it's cool that we're able to use it to lift people up, but if you let that word fall into the wrong hands, it's just gonna end up being free land for everybody.
I feel like, I feel like I hear it more from non-Black students, and in spaces where they have a mixed friend group, it's like thrown all together, and it's almost like, I know people like to say it's a term of endearment, it means homie or bro, but at the end of the day, people who say it, regardless of your race, I feel like it either has to do with you want to stay in that comfortable spot where nobody's really addressing the elephant in the room, that we're all using racial slurs in a daily conversation about what we had for lunch, or they just don't know. They just don't know about the history, and they're pleading ignorance, if you know what I mean. They're just like, oh, I didn't know the N-word meant that. And sometimes when they do know, they just continue to do it because they're in that sense of they're too comfortable and they're afraid of that change.
I just want to start off by saying, if a word needs endless rules and regulations on who can and can't say it, the word doesn't need to be said, period. Even when, like, my friends, like, my friends, they say it. I don't partake in it. When they say it, like, it's irritating in a way, because it's like, dang well, if anybody else came up to you and said that and like, oh, what's up, you would flip a table. You would be really upset. And I'm not able to understand how it's okay for us to say it. Like, that word went through so much, like the origin of that word. In the video, we were literally saying our languages and usages of a word unfolded the definition, not the other way around. If you weren't there to be a part of that struggle our ancestors went through, why do you think it's okay to use that as a term of endearment? Slave owners didn't use that for us as a term of endearment, so it shouldn't be used for your friend as a term of endearment. Nothing about that word is okay. And us using it to describe one another, or me telling you that I love you in a way, that's not what that word is for, so why are you trying to change the definition? I understand wanting to reclaim a word, but I think the way to move forward is by letting the word go entirely, instead of trying to redefine it and make it some new cool definition in today's society.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I was just talking about this with my mom, and I think that when you say the word, regardless if you know the past, I think all of us sitting up here can say that we've studied it and we've studied the word, and I know where it comes from and we know where it comes from. But even if you don't, you know it's wrong. And even if a white person, especially, a lot of what they like to say is what you said, oh, it's homie or friend, but you know that it's not. And you choose to say it, and you choose to put it out there, and you know that you're saying it to get under our skin, and we know, So even if they think it's oh, it's a joke, or it's not, or it's for fun, you know it's not for fun, and you still say it. And even if you want to hide behind the joke part or hide behind the fun part, you know, and you're saying it on purpose. So I just think that it does matter. The definition of the word does matter, but regardless of what you want to say your definition is, you know that that's not the real thing, and that's not why you're saying it. You're saying it to hurt, not to help or to be funny.
Thank you for that. So that kind of segues into my next question for you guys is, how do you think the N-word affects the way Black students are perceived in school settings by teachers, peers, et cetera? And what has it impacted you in being in that space? So whoever wants to go, Karai, I see you, go ahead.
I feel like it makes teachers think we're unserious and undedicated. I feel like first impressions are everything, and first impressions have a lasting impression. Your first impression of somebody when you first have that conversation with them and you see them interacting in the classroom, you get a feel for how a student is. And when you're in class being loud and obnoxious, using the N-word carelessly and stuff like that, you give the rest of the students who don't use that word a bad rep. The fact that you think it's okay makes them think it's okay. If you're using it in a casual setting, they're gonna think oh, okay, so then it's just a word that we can use. No. for the rest of the students around us, like for me personally, I get asked all the time by like teachers on campus, like, like how I feel about the word and stuff like that for guidance and everything like that. And they're confused by my answer because the students on campus, the Black students and the non-Black students, they use it like it's the word the. They use it like it's just a regular common word. And it just, yeah.
I want to add what you said about like teachers asking. I've had so many teachers ask, and I was like sitting here thinking, and like I am now a senior, and I've had so many classes. Like there's about 6 teachers that we get a year. I don't think I've ever had a Black teacher, and like it's so different to have the representation. And like Mr. Sloan used to work at my school, and I got to know him very well, and and like just
Then
having,
he left you, huh?
yeah, he did. But just having him there, and he worked in student services too. So having, like, when I reported something, I had to go, I was called in and I was like, oh no, like, here we go. And like, then I saw Mr. Sloan and I was like, it just feels so much better. But like, regardless, as a teacher, if you're Black or not, we need to be having these conversations. Like, I know it might be easier to hand the student over to a fellow Black, teacher or like one of your peers that's Black, but like having the conversations is what's needed, regardless if you're Black or not, to show the student that you care. Because if you ignore it, or if it is ignored, that's like, to me, which happens a lot at our school, to me it's like I don't think that anyone cares or anyone wants to try to fix it. And I know that's not the case, but that is what's being shown. So I think that's important.
All right, anybody? Okay, so how do you think teachers and school staff should address the use of the N-word in schools by both Black students and non-Black students?
I hear a lot that Black students use it too. So if we want to stop the N-word on campus at whole, then there's going to be a lot of Black students in trouble. So let them be in trouble. They need to learn that regardless of your race, that this word is not acceptable. Just like she said, if it has to have limitations and regulations on who could say this, and it should not be in your vocabulary, period. And I feel like there's a lack of discipline, and there's a lack of, maybe discipline's not the right word. There's a lack of, like lack of boundaries that we have for Black students. We're like, oh, you could say it, not you though. So I feel like universally, it's a harmful word, and it's so distasteful and dehumanizing to hear, especially coming from like my own people, because it's like, dude, you should know better. And I feel like that administrators should really take that initiative to set those boundaries with all of their students, not just their non-Black students.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what MJ said, I believe, or I agree with what she says. If there's gonna be more Black kids in trouble for saying the N-word, I'm good with that. And it should definitely be cut out of the classroom setting, because I used to be in regular classes and I used to hear the N-word a lot throughout just class, and not even from Black people. And when it was from Black people, it would be scarce, but still, it caught me off guard. So on top of what she said, it should be cut out of all classrooms. We can't, I won't say we can't. It's going to be a journey to cut it out of school entirely, like in the hallways and the cafeteria. But until then, the classrooms is the most direct way we can ensure a safe space for students.
Anyone else?
I like to piggy off what Bryson said.
Here we go. I was waiting for this one.
So I feel like, especially, I've talked about this earlier, and I'll keep going back to this. In my 4th period class, the use of the N-word and just like disgusting racial jokes were being, and I'm an accelerated student, and I like to take a higher course of education. And it makes it so hard to focus when like nobody here is like has the intention to learn. They have the intention to be joking, and a lot of people, it's like, oh, I didn't know. But it's like, and especially with the teachers, they just be like, oh, I didn't hear, but you heard. Because when you hear students like regular cussing, they'll say, hey, stop that. But when it comes to the N-word, they're like, Crickets.
Crickets.
Emphasis on the crickets. I just want to say that it means so much more when non-Black teachers and staff members take a stand for us, because it shows us that we're not alone. Like we know that, like, you know, other like staff members that are the same color as us, like we know that we can go to them and have somebody to talk to about it. But for me, I only have 2 Black staff members at my school as a whole. So when I see other staff members like taking a stand and, like, you know, making it clear that it's not okay in any setting, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable in knowing that, you know what, I have a support system. And I know as teachers, you guys want all of your students to feel like they have somebody to talk to. That's one way to start, especially for Black students. And I just wanted to add that.
So courage is what I'm hearing. So my question, because you know we're under 5 minutes now. So what advice would you give someone who's struggling with dealing with the meaning of the word and how to support you when it comes to your experience with the word?
I feel like courage is a big thing. I feel like students and staff alike need to have the courage to pick. Speakers said to have those uncomfortable conversations and be ready to state the wrongdoings and acknowledge the problem is. The problem is that we're not setting boundaries, that we're not educated enough on the word, and that we're not able to understand that, like the video said, context is everything, and we have the power to change the context. We have the power to change a word, and when we have the power to do it, I feel like we should definitely use it. I feel like we talk so much about, oh, we need higher test scores and we need to build relationships with our kids, but our kids don't feel safe in classrooms unless our teachers have the courage to stand up for them.
I want to add, because you said about education, I think it's so important to emphasize education over punishment, because we should try to like get in front of the problem before it happens. And we've had many assemblies at Clovis North, because just like every high school, there's a bunch of like problems with behavior and stuff like that. And there's always a section in the assembly where they're like, don't say the N-word, don't do this, don't do that. And like it's like when you're a little kid and then like your mom's like, don't eat the candy, and you wait till she's not looking and you take it out of the jar, you know? So it's like, instead of like saying don't do this, don't do that, which is very important after it happens, but even before all that happens, like showing something like this video that we've all watched, like that's a video that anyone watching would comprehend and understand and like find value in. So something to start with, like even before anything happens, to start in the beginning of the year. If you're a teacher, I'm just gonna say like, hi students, but I just wanna say I do not stand for any type of discrimination in my classroom. And if that happens, you know, then I'm gonna do something about it. Like, I think we should try and get in front of the problem rather than treating it after.
I think the question was what advice you would give, right? I've heard this every time I came to my parents about me being called the N-word or going through some sort of hate from my friends. Keep going. Keep going. Your success is the best revenge. And I didn't quite understand or believe that until this year when I saw one of my friends come back from summer and he had drastically changed in his behavior. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, my advice would just be to keep going. If you keep going and you succeed, eventually you're gonna leave them behind and they're gonna be dissatisfied because they couldn't leave you in your tracks. So.
Babatunde, can I have like 2 or 3 more minutes to close this up? Thank you. Karai, your words of advice.
I don't have so much of advice, but like, you know, after listening to all the other keynote speakers, I want to leave you guys just like, you know, with one question to keep with you as you guys go back into your classrooms and you're around students. If a word carries centuries of pain, oppression, and resistance, one that our ancestors fought to reclaim and redefine, should it ever be casually spoken by those who never bore the weight of it. That goes for non-Black and Black students today. If you weren't the one going through that torture and enslavement, you shouldn't use the word. If you don't share any relation to the ancestors or anyone who had experience with that word, you never need to be saying it at all. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
So, one, thank you, all four of you, because this took courage. Because as Black people, we're more apt to be told to be quiet than to use our voice. So I want to praise each of you for being on this stage and having this conversation. I want to thank your parents. Can the parents please stand?
My mom's in the back. Everybody say thank you for her service. She's in the Air Force.
And earlier, one of our keynote speakers had something up in her presentation. It says, "We are the children of those who refuse to die." Ladies and gentlemen, these are the children of those who refuse to die. And with that, I will rescind my time back, but I just want to leave you all with one thing. On your campus, you're going to hear some kids that don't look like these babies say, "I got the N-word pass." Can I ask y'all to start shredding those passes, please? Because there is not an N-word on this stage with the intelligence that these children have that deserve to go to school every day and be victimized on their campus and someone turn a blind eye. This is our future. And we need everybody in this room to find the courage. So thank you all so much. I love you, and you already know that. And thank you to Babatunde and Parsec for allowing us to have this time. Thank you.